Zooey Mama! How's it going, everybody? I'm here today with a new video series that I'm going to try and do every single month. I'm going to have this tier list with Series 4 and Series 5 cards and give my thoughts on which ones are worth buying with tokens or even spotlight caches and which ones are not. Okay, I've got a couple newer people in my Discord and they've been, talking about which cards they're going after, asking which ones are worth it, what should they spend their tokens on. Okay, they're collecting all the Series 3 cards, and they also have access to getting some Series 4 and Series 5 with tokens and caches, but caches, you're kind of at the mercy of Second Dinner as to when cards will be in caches, and they've even removed them from the data mines, so we're even more in the dark. So this is mainly going to be focused on cards that are worth the tokens. So Series 4 cards here are at a pretty big advantage because they're only 3,000 tokens. Okay, Series 5 cards are twice as much at 6,000 tokens, but there are a lot of really good Series 5 cards. So for ranking these cards, I've got S tier, which is essentially just a must-have. Like, everybody's collection should have this card. Okay, it's basically needed to make a ton of decks or, top of the meta stuff. A is just a solid buy. Like, you're gonna get good use out of this card and you're not gonna regret the tokens. B is for specific decks, so these cards are starting to be a bit more niche. They're maybe not for everybody. If a card doesn't fit your playstyle and it's a B tier card, you probably shouldn't chase after it. C is even more so. C tier cards only get if you really like the specific deck it's in. Okay, these cards are super niche. They maybe just have one deck they work in, so you really need to like them if you think they're worth it. And then F tier is just cards that you really need to wait for them to drop down a series or get buffed. And so this I'm really reserving for bad Series 5 cards because they're bad and they cost 6,000 tokens, and that kind of sucks. Okay, at least Series 4 cards are cheaper, so if you buy a weaker one or it's pretty niche, it's not as big of a commitment. You're not spending as many resources. So I'm going to be talking about cards not just in the order that they're competitive, but also the decks you can make with them, the archetypes that you can play, and how fun they are. I mean, if a card's more fun, you're going to play it more, okay, if you find the card fun. And if you play it more, it's worth more resources. So we're not just looking at the best Series 4 and 5 cards tier list, we're looking at the ones that are really worth the tokens, okay? We will kick it off with Alioth. Alioth has seen a few nerfs, but he's still a very strong card, okay? He is Series 5, but he's a solid card. I'm gonna say Alioth is A tier, okay? 6,000 tokens, it's a big commitment, but he's really good and he can really win you some games and be a staple in some meta decks. Okay, Annihilus next up is another very good card. So I'm also saying Annihilus is A tier, okay? Again, he's 6,000 tokens, he is Series 5, but the Annihilus Sentry package is insanely strong. For Better A Bill, I'm bringing him down to B tier. So he's a bit more niche. You mainly just run him with a Lockjaw deck or just with the Jane Foster Thor package, but he's a really fun card. Okay, he has 6,000 tokens, which is a lot, but he is pretty fun. And so I have him in B tier here. And I'm going to keep these cards alphabetical, by the way. The order that they're shown in each tier, I'm not saying one is better than the other. Okay, I'm not saying Alioth is worth more than Annihilus. I'm just going to rank them first by the series they're in. So I'll put Series 4 first, and then alphabetically. Okay, and I've put a list together already, so I'm going to be referencing that. Black Knight I have right after Bill. I think also, same thing. Black Knight's really strong, but only in discard. So if you don't play discard, you don't need Black Knight, okay? And he is Series 5. Blob is another card that has seen some nerfs, but is still very powerful. So I'm saying Blob is also an A tier card, and he is Series 5. Okay, next up we've got Kyera. I'm a bit back and forth for Kyera between A and B. She's pretty strong. I'm not sure she's necessarily needed, but you would get good use out of her, okay? Especially right now with Thanos meta, she can be pretty strong, so I'll keep her in A tier as well. Series 5 starting out really strong. Call Obsidian I'm going to skip for now because he is pretty new. He just came out at the time I'm making this video, so I'll talk about him at the end. Dawkin is a Series 4 card, I believe. And he's not the best, he's kind of niche, but he's only 3,000 tokens. So I'll actually put him up here in B tier. I'm just putting him in front of Bill and Black Knight because he's Series 4. Okay, he's not necessarily better than them or more worth it, but just Series 4 and then alphabetical. Darkhawk is an insanely powerful card. Second Dinner one time said, since Darkhawk has come out, he's been in the top 10 most winningest cards ever. Okay, he's basically always been good. There are times where he takes a bit of a dip in the meta, but he always comes right back up. He's always really strong, and he doesn't really create new archetypes or fit into a ton of decks. You pretty much play the Darkhawk package with a couple variations, but he's so strong, and he's only series 4. Okay, so he's only 3,000 tokens to get like the strongest card in the game, or one of, so he's S tier. Okay, if he was 6,000 tokens, I'd probably have him at A, but given that he's only 3,000, he was also just featured in Spotlight caches, so if you miss those caches, you're basically only going to get him from the token shop now. Okay, he's probably not going to be in caches anytime soon, but we have no idea. Echo I have in B tier as well. Put her right here next to Dawkin. Echo's pretty niche, but she can have good value, and she's only 3,000 tokens. Okay, so Series 4 cards again have a bit of a benefit where they can be a bit worse than the other cards in the tier they're on, because they're half the price of these Series 5 cards. Next up, we've got Elsa Bloodstone. She used to be really good on release. She was busted. I think she's still Series 5. She's definitely F tier. Okay, she is not worth any tokens right now. Next up, we've got Ghost Spider, who I would say goes into C tier, basically the bottom tier that I'm allowing for Series 4 cards. Okay, she's only 3,000 tokens, but she's super niche, and you don't ever really need to play her. In a move deck, she'll get a little bit of value, but move isn't super strong, and again, it's really only if she suits your style. Okay, if you like playing move, go ahead, but really only if you like playing move or a deck that she adds value to. Gladiator is a full 6,000 tokens, but he was buffed to being 8 power, and he's pretty good now, especially in some certain tempo decks. I'm giving him B tier actually. Okay, he's not necessarily needed. You could replace him in decks, but he has seen a good amount of play in the current meta, so that puts him B tier card, even though he's 6,000 tokens still. High Evo creates his own archetype. Okay, if you do not own High Evo, you cannot play any High Evo decks. You can't play High Evo She-Not, High Evo Lockdown, just like Control or Tempo. You can't do any of that. So High Evo is like staple S tier. And he was introduced as a big bad, although Second Dinner said they're kind of getting rid of the big bads tag, but I don't think he ever drops down. Okay, I think he's permanent Series 5, and so permanent Series 5, a card that's literally needed for his own archetype, he's a must-have. Okay, he is worth the 6,000 tokens. And sorry, by the way, if I sound a little bit sick, because I am a little bit sick, so sorry if my voice is raspy or you hear some grunting. Howard, I recently picked up, and I'm having fun with him. He's definitely not a great card. He's definitely not needed in any deck, really. I get some use out of him, but definitely a C tier card. Okay, only 3,000 tokens, but doesn't add a ton of value anywhere. Next up, we've got Jean Grey. Pretty easy F tier. Okay, if Jean Grey was Series 4, she could definitely be C tier, but she's not. She's a full 6,000 tokens, and she's not worth any of that. Okay, she is not worth those tokens. Unlike Jeff, who is 6,000 tokens, and he is worth it. Jeff is going all the way up to S tier. So Jeff does not create his own archetype like High Evo, but he's basically like the most universal 2-cost card. Okay, you can put Jeff in the most decks. You know when Second Dinner does those like season recap things where we can see your most played cards that season? I basically always have Jeff. A ton of people basically always have Jeff, or maybe they have Nico or something. Jeff is just really good. Okay, you can play him in anything. You will get your tokens worth of Jeff. Then we've got Kang, who I love to call Kong, and people love to correct me. He is absolute garbage. I'm not sure. He might have been a big bad. I think he's supposed to be a big bad, but he's still Series 5. He's basically always been horrible. They haven't dropped him down. They haven't changed him. I don't know what they're planning to do with him. Okay, why they've never touched him, I don't know. But he's bad. Okay, do not buy Kang. He's not even really worth going after in spotlights. He's really like one of the least playable cards in the game, unfortunately. Galactus is another big bad who's taken some nerfs. I actually have Galactus in C tier. Now, I think competitively, Galactus is maybe more of like a B tier card per this list, but just on being worth the tokens, he's so niche, okay? If you're playing Galactus, you're either playing a deck that's like completely built around him, or maybe you have him kind of as a flex spot in a ramp deck, but other than that, you don't play him. Okay, so if you don't think he suits your playstyle, then you're never gonna play him. Okay, he is so specific. He does have his own archetype, but it's just so specific, and it's not for everyone. He has a full 6,000 tokens. He probably won't ever drop down, so I actually have him down here in C tier because of how niche he is. Now Grandmaster, same kind of thing, doesn't make his own archetype the same way, but he's very niche. He's very difficult to play. Okay, he takes a bit of like skill and getting used to. Definitely C tier for now. Maybe as time goes on, as we see more combos come out where he gets use, he maybe goes up a bit, but for now, I don't really think he's worth the tokens. Next up, we've got Kitty Pryde, who has seen her fair share of nerfs, but she is only Series 4 now, so I'm actually putting Kitty Pryde over here in the B tier. I think this is the spot. There we go. She's okay. She's actually seen a bit more play now that Hulkbuster got buffed, or changed, I should say, to being a 2-cost card, because you could just do Kitty and Hulkbuster on turn 3, and then you can hit it with Shuri. So we're seeing some more Shuri Kitty decks, and being only 3,000 tokens, she is a pretty fun card. Legion, definitely A tier. I think Legion is Series 5 still, but he's very good. He's pretty flexible. You can put him in a ton of decks, and he can just be a win condition in basically any deck. Okay, he adds good power to the board, but just flipping some locations on the last turn, you can just steal some cubes. So definitely solid buy. Loki, while being very strong, is pretty specific. Okay, and he is Series 5, so I've actually got Loki over here in B tier as well. He has been thought of as like a super busted card since he got released. He got like a small nerf, then they changed Collector, they changed him back, and now they hurt his synergy with Collector. It's been a whole thing, right? A whole emotional roller coaster ride with Loki. He is still a very strong card. He's still very good, but again, it's very specific. He doesn't really fit into a ton of decks. There's basically like 1 or 2 kind of core lists or shells that you play with him. So it's maybe not for everybody, but he is a very strong card, and he's pretty fun. Okay, he is a very fun card. Just the community hates him because of how broken he was. Havoc, I'm putting in C tier. He's not super good, but he is only 3,000 tokens. He was released as a Series 4 card, and he's actually pretty unique. I do like the uniqueness of his ability and how it works. I think interactions that are kind of crazy like that are healthy for the game, you know, testing out new things. I think he's well built. He's just not in a great spot, okay, but he is only 3,000 tokens. Hercules is doo-doo, okay. Hercules, I'm definitely putting in F tier. I think Hercules is Series 5. Pretty sure it's not Series 4, but he's bad. Okay, he's really bad. Move decks even don't need him, and if your move deck doesn't need a move card, then you don't need Hercules in your collection. Okay, it's pretty simple. Hitmonkey, I'm putting up here in B tier. This is another card that used to be broken and it got nerfed, but he's pretty good. You can definitely get some use out of him. Sarah decks are playing him. Some like Zoo or Bounce decks are playing him. So he's not a bad card, and he's pretty fun. Okay, him being fun definitely keeps him pretty high in the B tier. I'm not sure he's an A tier card fun, but he's worth it if you like playing those type of decks. Iron Lad is like a Jeff for 4-cost cards, okay? Iron Lad is just insanely strong, and he's insanely flexible. He is the universal 4-cost card. I consider him a must-have. He also gets discounted by Zabu. I mean, he just works, okay? I play him a ton. I think he's a must-have card. He's so hard to replace. Martyr, another C-tier card. She is only Series 4 as well, I believe, but she's not very good, super niche, so she belongs in the C tier. Then we've got Mobius. Okay, now Mobius is pretty strong, but he's definitely a tech card. Okay, he's good at countering Zabu, Loki, Ravana, Sarah, which are seeing a good amount of play, and I play a decent amount of Mobius. So I think in terms of strength, he's about B tier, but he is only 3,000 tokens. So I'm actually keeping Mobius in the A tier up here, okay? Because him being cheap, the value that you can get of him for 3,000 tokens, the tech options that you can add to your deck, and just the things you can counter with the Series 4 card is really good. Okay, he can produce a lot of value, and you can put him in a lot of decks because he pretty much just fits a 3-cost spot. He doesn't require really synergy. All right, next up, we've got MODOK very specific to discard, has even seen kind of a drop in play recently, even in discard decks. I still have him as B tier because he can still be run in a lot of discard decks and add value. He might even see more play once we see Corvus Glaive and Proxima come out. And he's only Series 4, okay? He's only 3,000 tokens, and for 3,000 tokens, he can be a lot of fun to play with, okay? Definitely opens up some options. Next up, let's look at Miss Marvel. She's taken a nerf. She's still very strong, easily A tier, fits into a good amount of decks still, gets discounted by Zabu. She's still like a 414 is her power, okay? So she's just a good card. She's definitely like the strongest season pass card that we've had in a while. Nimrod is fairly niche. I actually have Nimrod down in C tier. Yeah, he goes right here alphabetically. He's only Series 4, but so specific. You're either playing just like a Shuri Nimrod deck or like a specific Galactus or Destroy deck with Nimrod. He's just really niche, okay? If that's not your playstyle, if you don't play those type of decks and you're not interested in playing them, you don't need to go after Nimrod. There's really no reason, okay? Then we've got Nebula, just another kind of staple card, pretty flexible. Definitely going into the A tier here. She is a bit more built for control and tempo decks. Maybe not as many decks as like a card like Jeff or Iron Lad fits into. And she has a full 6,000 tokens, okay? But she's just a great card, and she can be a bit of a win condition, which is pretty awesome for a 1 cost card. And then we've got Ravonna Renslayer. I also have her up in the A tier. She's not as strong as Zabu, but she can be really good. She can kind of be at the core of some decks. Sometimes you run her alongside Zabu. Maybe you're playing a Mr. Negative deck, or just even a deck with like Darkhawk, Mystique, maybe you've got Iron Man in there, throw in some goblins, do whatever you want. She's just pretty strong, okay? She's always going to add value, and as more cards come into the game, she's going to get better if you get more lower power cards into the game. So she's definitely a solid buy, and she's only Series 4, okay? She's only 3,000 tokens, and that's really awesome. Null is very good as well, and he is only Series 4. So I definitely have Null up here in the A tier. Okay, basically if you're playing a Destroy deck, you want Null, regardless of what kind of Destroy deck it is. Almost all of them want Null, even Mr. Negative decks will play some Null. And he's just solid. Now, I don't have him S tier, even though he's a really strong card, because if you don't play Destroy, you don't need him, right? He's not necessarily a must-have. He doesn't create an archetype that has variations, and he's not super flexible. But if you want to play Destroy, he's insanely good. Okay, then we've got Selene, who I was pretty hyped for before she came out, and she kind of flopped, and then even they had the weird change of giving her positive 2 power and not working with the Nihilist. It's been weird. She's had an awkward journey, and I think she's F tier because she's not worth 6,000 tokens, okay? Hopefully they drop her down at some point, but I really do think they kind of need to like buff or rework her. That would be awesome. Lady Deathstrike I have over in the C tier. She is just Series 4, so not horrible, and she's a bit of a tech card as well. I like playing her every now and then. She's definitely not needed in like anything, but you can throw into a Destroy deck or even some kind of random decks as a surprise card. Given the meta, she could add some value, but again, only if it suits you. Pretty niche. Supergiant I'm going to wait on because she's also very new. I'll just give my thoughts on Supergiant and call at the end. Sebastian Shaw, recent season pass card, pretty weak, okay? He seemed kind of weak before he came out, and he came out and he was kind of weak still. Really only works in like a Surfer deck, and for something that only works in Surfer, and he doesn't carry Surfer to the next level, he doesn't elevate the deck, he just works in it. He can be played in Surfer, so to me that's a C tier card. For something that's 6,000 tokens, like that should not be the case, okay? He should be better in Surfer or fit more things. Scar is also another recent season pass card, and Scar is pretty strong. So I have Scar over here in the B tier. He is Series 5, but he's pretty good, works in some Lockjaw decks, a variety of decks. He's not super fun. You just kind of slap him down, he's big power, but he's a solid card. Werewolf by Night has been hit by some nerfs, but still a solid card and pretty fun, okay? Series 5, but bounce around the board. He's kind of hard to play. You got to learn him a bit, but he can be a ton of fun. Silver Samurai has actually seen a bit of a resurgence recently. I'll actually add Silver Samurai to the B tier as well because he's only Series 4. He has a pretty unique ability and he can really counter some decks hard, especially right now with Darkhawk back in the meta. Silver Samurai could discard him from your opponent's hand or even hit like Mystique or something. So because he's only 3,000 tokens, I think we can put him in the B tier. Thanos, we are also moving up to S tier. Okay, Thanos just creates his own archetypes. Thanos Dex, Thanos Destroy, Thanos Lockjaw, Thanos Zoo. He's like a high Evo. Okay, he's always going to create decks. There's some metas where Thanos is really good, like recently he's been really good. There's sometimes he's not really good, but he's always going to ebb and flow, come back and forth. Okay, the fact that he just does so many things and you don't even need that many Series 3 cards for him and High Evo. That's the best thing about High Evo actually, is that he buffs all these cards, and the only one he buffs the Series 3 or higher is Wasp. The other cards he buffs, you're going to have. If you're in Series 3, you're going to have the cards. So High Evo just gives you like a full deck, even if you are new to Series 3 and you don't have any Series 4 or 5 cards besides High Evo. Okay, Thanos something similar. He just gives you a lot of cards. Often he is paired with some Series 5 cards, but you can do a lot with him, even if your collection is not that big. Phoenix Force, I think, is pretty weak. Yeah, Phoenix Force you pretty much play in these Destroy decks and bring stuff back with Phoenix Force. Just very specific. Phoenix Force is only Series 4, but such a niche playstyle. Living Tribunal, my main man, one of my favorite cards in the game. We're going to bring him up to B tier. Okay, not only because I love playing him, especially in ongoing decks that just like ongoing raw power, but he's played a good amount in like hella Tribunal decks, okay, hella discard. So he can add value, but he's a full 6,000 tokens, but I find him pretty fun, okay? I think it's a pretty unique ability as well. X23, just like Null, is very strong. She is Series 5, but we will put her in the A tier. She's basically needed in Destroy, okay? Any Destroy deck you look at now has X23, so if you want to play Destroy, you want to get X23. If you're not a Destroy player, then maybe you can skip on her. Maybe she gets played in some discard decks as well. She does synergize with discard. So far, it's really just been Destroy, but she's a really strong card. Alright, then we've got Man-Thing, who I believe is also just Series 4, but has really just not seen the light of day in the meta. I'm putting Man-Thing over in the C tier. He's just very niche. Now that Luke Cage got buffed, Man-Thing's a bit better, but he just, again, he hasn't seen play in like a meta deck yet. He hasn't really broken through. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a small buff one day. Okay, but he's only 3,000 tokens. We're keeping him in the C tier. Then we've got Meek, aka Magic Mike, also a C tier card. If Meek was Series 5 and if he cost 6,000 tokens, that would easily be F tier for me. But he's only 3,000 tokens, and if you think it's fun having this little bug moving around the board, then maybe he's worth it. Alright, we've got Mirage, another Series 4 card, and sees some play in Loki decks, but I have Mirage in C tier. She's not needed in Loki decks. She's pretty easily replaced, and she doesn't really see play anywhere else, so C tier card for me. Nico is very strong. Nico's somewhere between S and A tier. I'm actually going to keep Nico in the A tier. She is super flexible, a little bit less flexible than Jeff and Iron Lad, just because some decks, if they have a very specific play pattern, especially if they're not playing down a lot of cards, it's just one card per turn, you don't always want Nico. Okay, if you're filling your curve, she's better in cheaper decks, Thanos decks, Bounce, Zoo, Destroy, just these decks that do a lot of things each turn. But she's super flexible, really strong card, Series 5 card, but she's a solid buy. Then we got Snowguard, who actually, strength-wise, I have more in the B tier, but because she is Series 4, only 3,000 tokens, Snowguard does go into the A tier for me. Okay, she works in Loki decks, she can work in Devil Dino decks, Collector decks, she can just be a good flex card, like one drop if you want to have those location changers or reactivators as a backup. You can just put her in your deck, okay? She just gives you some options, and I really like that. Then we've got Silk, who is still a Series 5 card. It feels like Silk has been in the game for a really long time. But Silk, I have over here in the B tier. She's a good card. Not going to fit into every deck, but not the most niche thing. Okay, you can just slap her into some decks, or even, you know, C5. She's great in. Then we've got Spider-Ham. Another B tier card. You know, I think he is Series 5 still as well, 6,000 tokens, but he can work really well in bounce decks. He can work well alongside Werewolf by Night here, or Hitmonkey right above him. And yeah, he can just be good, especially in the right meta. He can do some damage. And last but not least of the cards who we have a really strong formulated opinion on, we've got Zabu, aka Zabuti. Zabuti is going straight up to S tier. Now, Zabu here in S tier, not as flexible as Iron-Lighted Jeff, but getting pretty close. Okay, you can put Zabu in a lot of decks. There is like the core Zabu package of doing like Zabu, Darkhawk, Shang-Chi, or Zabu, Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel, which is seen like a ton. It's an insane number of decks. Now you can even throw in Omega Red, and the win rates are high, the play rates are high. He's like one of the most played cards in the game, if not the most, alongside Shang-Chi, who he enables. Okay, Zabu lets you play Darkhawk and Shang-Chi on the last turn. He's just nuts. Okay, he really enables a lot of the 4-cost cards on this list. They love having Zabu in there. So I consider Zabu a must-have. He's in top meta decks pretty much all the time since he came into the game. There's almost always a top deck that runs Zabu. He's definitely worth it. So that is my list for cards I have a really strong opinion on. We do have these newer cards, Supergiant and Call Obsidian. Black Swan also came out. She's the season pass card though currently, so you cannot get her with tokens. So I'm not going to put her on this list of cards you can get with tokens, because right now she's not Series 4 or Series 5. Until next month, you won't be able to get her without the season pass. So Supergiant, if I had to place her now, again, it's still pretty early, I would probably put her in B or C, maybe C tier alongside the Grandmaster. Same kind of thing, very niche, specific playstyle, not needed. If she does start seeing some more play or top decks, she could easily move up to the B tier, but I think she's a pretty C tier card. Call Obsidian literally came out today, the day I'm filming this, so he's very new, but the early reviews are good. I've been playing him. I think he's good. He is Series 5, so I think he's going to fall somewhere in A or B. Okay, if he starts seeing really a lot of play and him in like a Thanos deck or some kind of like Darkhawk deck becomes meta, then he could easily be an A tier card. If he just sees like a little bit of play, I don't expect him drawing lower than B tier. Just a 410 is a really strong stat. So that's my guess for Call and Supergiant. But I'll touch back on them next month. I'm going to take a look at this list and I'm going to make some changes, okay? And so I'll show what I change. I'll basically just move stuff around when I go over this next month, and I'll try and keep the list running. I'll try and keep it updated, and I'll go ahead and show a picture on the screen here of the full list. I'll also just keep a copy, I think, in the Discord somewhere. So go ahead and join the Discord if you haven't already. It's in the description for this video, and I'll try and keep a copy of this list in there and maybe even get people's feedback, see what their thoughts are. So those are my thoughts on the Series 4 and Series 5 cards that are worth their tokens as a tier list. Okay, and again, sometimes Spotlight Cash, but we can't predict those, so it's more focused on tokens. So let me know what you think of this list. Let me know what you think of these cards, which cards you think are worth the tokens the most, just must have, you need to go after them, and which ones are complete duds. Okay, maybe you even bought some duds with like 6,000 tokens and it feels really bad, or maybe it was good when you bought it and then Second Dinner just nerfed it. Okay, like Elsa Bloodstone or something. If you got her as a season pass card, she was awesome, and then she just got like nerfed to the ground. I think she was a season pass card, at least, yeah. And so let me know what you guys think. Until then, stay positive, and we'll see you next time.